Last week in Florida, a man gunned down another man in a convenience store parking lot, and the hoplophobic press got a little bit of mileage out of it. It wasn't a mass shooting. It didn't involve an AR-15. It didn't take place at a school, and it didn't involve a white supremacist or a militia guy or a Republican. Then why all the hubbub? Because it involved another one of gun control's latest favorite bugaboos. Stand your ground laws. They're shoot first laws. They're a license to kill. And of course, the left-wing favorite. That's racist! And they're all wrong. And here's what's missing. Because gun control runs under the assumption that gun ownership is in and of itself a criminal enterprise, they pay no attention to the very important fact that stand your ground laws are a part of law that covers self-defense. Because having the right to life and liberty really means nothing if you can't defend that life and liberty, even under extreme and immediate circumstances. It's also very important to remember that defensive actions are, by their very nature, reactive, not preemptive. They are a response to violence that has been initiated against you and not you initiating the violence. And in order to determine if your actions in a shooting situation were indeed defensive or not, you will have to undergo judicial proceedings to find that out. Stand your ground does not exempt you from that at all. And if you are found that your use of deadly force more closely resembles a criminal act rather than an act of self-defense, stand your ground will not exonerate you. It's a big responsibility that we concealed carry practitioners take very seriously, despite the cherry-picked examples that gun control propaganda tries to use to besmirch our lifestyle. For example, Michael Dunn, who in 2012 got into an argument over loud music and decided to resolve the situation with gunfire. Florida's Stand Your Ground law was invoked and was found to be inapplicable to his situation. He was sentenced to life without parole, among other things, about 2 years later. And then there's the case of Carl Otto Henson, who more recently tried shooting at a man who had stolen his smartphone and was running away. He tried to invoke his misunderstanding of Missouri's Stand Your Ground law, but cops on the scene determined it to be inapplicable to his case, and he's currently in jail as his case goes under trial. So, calling these laws either shoot first or license to murder laws are gross misnomers, heavy on emotion, very light on any real understanding about self-defense laws, much less stand your ground. What's more, gun control propagandists' insistence on calling these laws by these misnomers do not serve to help clarify these laws. They help engender confusion and misunderstanding about them, and might actually help encourage the sort of behavior that they decried in Carl Otto Henson's case. Now, as far as the racism angle goes, which is the knee-jerk reflex of left-wingers who really have no argument to present to this issue or any other issue for that matter, that also falls flat on its face. Their argument runs something like this, that stand your ground laws somehow disproportionately affects blacks. However, a study done by the Tampa Bay Times found no such gross disparity. In fact, they discovered that blacks benefit slightly more than whites with stand your ground laws. But getting back to the shooting that happened in that Florida convenience store parking lot, the details of it are still under investigation, and in the meantime, people on both sides of the aisle are still kind of debating the details of it. Did McLaughlin actually retreat before Dreyka shot him? And so on and so forth. We won't know until a formal investigation and trial has actually been carried out. But so far, one thing is absolutely indisputable, that Dreyka was violently shoved to the ground by McLaughlin. And all this over a parking space that McLaughlin really shouldn't have been parked at in the first place. And you have to ask yourself, is this the way that civilized society behaves? Firstly, by showing no respect to the handicapped, by trampling over provisions set aside for them, and then by preemptively shoving a complete stranger who calls you out on your infraction. Now, to me, this entire situation helps highlight an idea that's embodied in a Robert Heinlein quote that's popular in gun culture, namely that an armed society is a polite society. Now, before people start scoffing and accusing me of hypocrisy, allow me to further explain myself by giving a couple of extra lines from that quote, which first appeared in Robert Heinlein's 1948 novel, Beyond This Horizon. Well, in the first place, an armed society is a polite society. Manners are good when one may have to back up his acts with his life. One of the hopes that we have when we pass laws is that people will, observe them, if only out of concerns for possibly incurring penalties if they don't. This is how we believe an orderly society should operate. But if a person thinks they won't incur such penalties, they may very well try to get away with some lawless, disorderly, or just plain rude behavior. People just might behave differently if they knew that their thoughtlessness might have more immediate consequences at the hands of another. Some would even argue that carrying a gun fosters civilization. At least that is the view of a German immigrant named Marco Kloss, who penned a famous essay over 10 years ago entitled Why the Gun is Civilization. The gist of it is this: guns eliminate the advantages of physical force that are enjoyed naturally by the stronger. And this places everyone on a sort of equal footing. And with that equality, one cannot merely coerce others through physical force, but instead must resort to convincing others through reason. Kloss winds down his essay with the declaration that carrying a gun is a civilized act. And the overwhelming majority of us gun owners, including those of us who carry for protection day after day, demonstrate the truth of those words day after day. Now, whether or not Dreyka can be numbered among those in light of what happened last weekend remains to be seen. That case is still being investigated. But it still does not change the fact that the overwhelming number of us gun owners demonstrate how our rights can be safely and responsibly exercised day after day after day.